Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a special edition on IsoNation. Today we have the popular Graham Mitchell back, by popular demand, I must admit. Graham ran a session with us a few weeks ago, a really great interactive session, and we thought now that we are in week 9, can you believe it, of official lockdown in the UK, we'd get Graham back on to take any questions that you guys have got. We've had a couple of questions come through already, and we can see how people are doing at the moment. And the focus is really on your people. So if you're managing a team, working from home, let us know how you're doing that, and if you've got any questions around that, and potentially easing back into your offices in the coming weeks or months, however you're deciding to do that. So just to backtrack, I'm Rachel Collison from Nifty Communications. This is Graham Mitchell. Do you want to tell us a little bit of background about your business, Graham?
Yeah, sure. Well, firstly, good morning, everybody, and it is good to be back. Some of you may have tuned into the session I did a week or two ago, but for those who didn't, as Rachel's mentioned, my name is Graham Mitchell, and I run an organisation called T2I where I work as a business psychologist. And I think often people will wonder exactly what that means, because it can cover a sort of multitude of sins in a way. And the way I always sort of describe it in a nutshell is, it's from my point of view, it's using psychology so that I help my clients perform better, and that performance can be the commercial outcomes that we look for in our businesses, so that the sort of harder metrics that we might work to, but it could also be the cultural ones as well. It's the behaviors that we have, the values that we have, and how we go about doing what we do, as well as what we actually do, which is great because it sees me work with individuals in the coaching front. It sees me work with teams, galvanizing that collective effort, and organizations as a whole. And one way or another, it's about two things. It's about helping people take advantage of the opportunities that are there for them, and also helping them overcome the challenges that are maybe set in front of them. And as you can probably imagine, there's a lot of both opportunities and challenges at the moment in time. And so it's interesting to be engaging with people at this time and seeing how we can overcome one and take advantage of the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And we run this session live so that we can gauge as many viewers as possible and as biggest reach as possible. And we do have to keep asking people that are watching to like, share and comment in their own Facebooks and on their groups. If you're in any business networking groups or any groups that you think will benefit from this seminar, this live seminar with Graham, then please do like, comment and share. I've just done it on my phone now. I've shared our interview in our feed. So just give us that thumbs up, like, share, comment and ask your questions. So Graham, what have you been finding then? Like I've mentioned, we've got day 59 up there, week 9. Things have probably changed since we last spoke. So with the clients that you're speaking to at the moment, what are the challenges that they are facing right now? Because initially it was adapting to, a sort of a new thing, and that can be a bit exciting at times as well. Then we had a lovely Easter break, and now we're, another 6 weeks probably down the line. So it's been a bit of a longer slog. People have probably got to the stage of being a bit fed up, and when can we go out? Obviously lockdowns ease a little bit, but the guidelines are also a little bit uncertain. So what are the main challenges your clients are talking to you about right now?
I think you sum up really well, Rachel, actually, because I think there are distinct stages of how we recovery plans in a way, and you're absolutely right. At the start, I've broken it down into sort of 4 in my mind. And at the start, I think it was, there's nothing more that most of us could do than what I class as sort of an observation stage, which is just let's just assess what's going on and evaluate what it's going to mean to us, for our clients as well. Because at the moment, it's moving so rapidly that we can't catch up with it to make plans. And I think that was that pre-Easter weekend stage, as you say. I think after that, we went into what I called the consolidation phase, which I think then made us focus on problem solving and planning. So what are the fires that we need to put out straight away so that we can operate as a business? What are those immediate challenges from a technology point of view, a communication point of view, an interaction point of view that will help us do what we need to do? and what are the plans we need to put in place so that we can start to not just exist as a business, but operate as a business moving forward as well. And I think that leads us into where I think we are now, which is what I class as a sort of recovery phase in a way, which is let's put those response plans in place and let's review how they go. So where we're starting to move forward again and the plans we put in place, where are they working? In which case, let's look doing more of that, because it'll speed up our recovery. Or where are we bumping into problems, and what changes do we need to make? And so I think that the key is it's in that response stage at this moment in time. So it's not any one issue in a way in terms of, is it this, is it that? It's just what people are bumping into from their people perspective. It is all going from novelty to normality. We're all running into this. And it's really how we make sense of all those people challenges that we have day to day in a kind of new normal or a next normal, as I'm choosing to call it, because I think we'll go in plateaus on this. So even in the last 24 hours, I've had, talks with the board level team about, are we functioning as effectively as we could do, given the changing environments, things around how we're managing people one-to-one, given the week that we're in, well-being well-being should always be high on people's agenda, but it's got a nice higher profile this week as well. So it's all the usual things, but I think the overarching challenge is how are we going to do all those things in a way that's going to allow us now to really start to roll forward and operate and be productive as an organization. And some of it's same as it was, but other things we're having to adapt a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned Mental Health Awareness Week.
Yeah.
Very much for that. I think it's really important to bring that to people's attention, because we actually spoke to Jo Min from Springfield Mind, which is the local mind charity for Warwickshire and Worcestershire, that Nifty do some work with to support them. And it's really interesting the effects that this situation is having on people, and perhaps people that wouldn't have put themselves in that bracket will have been feeling different challenges, anxious, etc. at this time of uncertainty. And so Jo was saying, she knows that their services are needed now more than ever, but obviously it's difficult with fundraising for the charities at the moment, and to offer some of their key services. But they are offering services, but also going forward, they know that coming out of this, they're going to be needed more than ever, because we will have an impact on people's mental health from this situation. So being in Mental Health Week, there's a lot on the internet about things that you can do and get involved with, and positive ideas to keep people going. Do you have any sort of top tips around that, Graham?
Well, I think there's so much good stuff out there, and it is all those good common sense bits. I mean, I think first of all, looking after our well-being is it's absolutely key. I mean, in these kind of uncertain times, and immediately uncertainty is always your greatest source of anxiety, and that immediately challenges well-being. But one of the things I've always said is that no matter what these situations might throw at us, what uncertainties are out there, what challenges we might face, the better position we're in as individuals, the better place we'll be to deal with it. So looking after our well-being, looking after ourselves is absolutely key in all of this. And I think with well-being, I think break it down into two things. I think break it down into general well-being and break it down into what I class as your workplace well-being. And the general well-being, I mean, I look no further than the kind of 5 ways to well-being that Mind come up with, in terms of connecting, be active, just staying present and taking notice of what's going on around you. Keep learning and challenging yourself, and keep giving, keep sort of interacting with others. I think is absolutely key, and just trying to find your way to weave those into what you're doing day to day, so you look after your general well-being. And it's not always easy, slightly easier now that lockdown's released a little bit, but just try and think about how you can do that. But then also, I think for individuals and for organizations as well, look at your workplace well-being, because there's a lot that we find rewarding about work that we need to make sure that we're keeping in our day-to-day routines. So making sure we understand the sense of purpose, we know what we're all about, what the organizations are trying to achieve. So I feel like I'm contributing to that, so that we've got structure to our days, and we feel like it's not just what I've got to do when I've got to do it. So I kind of we all quite like that structure. We feel like we're useful, so we feel like we're using the skills that we've got, both technical or softer skills, to be productive. We're interacting with other people, and we're also kind of feeding back to each other. We're getting recognition, and there's there's lots of sort of nutrients that we take from those people around us in the workplace as well. So I think it's incumbent on us all as individuals and those who are looking after those around us to make sure that we look after our overall well-being, but we look after how the workplace can also feed into that as well, in terms of those kind of what I call the well-being nutrients that really sort of come out of what we do day to day, that really do just help us feel more fulfilled and rewarded with our working day, and that feeds into us feeling more fulfilled and rewarded with our overall day. I can hear you, can't see you, Rachel, so I don't know if
you can hear me. I'm so sorry, something has happened with my camera, so we'll keep going. If you can definitely hear me, that is awesome.
I can hear you, so
Great stuff. We've had a couple of hellos come through, so thank you to Bethany, Linda, Gemma. They're agreeing with what you're saying there, Graham, as well, and thanks, Bethany, for sharing in some groups. Linda's commented here, she wants to ask about sort of the frustrations caused by the lack of normal communication and the usual contact points that are fragmented. So I think, you know, when you're in an office, you usually have those kind of water cooler moments, we tend to call them. And not only is that a kind of social aspect of being together and that communication, but also it does generate new business ideas. You know, it can be very productive overall for businesses, having those little moments. So I guess people are feeling that frustration, and it's not quite the same having a Zoom call or a video call in that sense. What are your kind of thoughts around that?
I think it's a really, really good point, and there's a lot. What I love about what's gone on over the last few weeks in terms of its impact moving forward is it's opened us up to lots of ways that we can now do things, and the communication and be in different places, and it'd be a lot better than we, you know, perhaps thought it might have been. But at the same time, it's also brought home to us what we miss for all sorts of reasons, and I think that communication side of things is a really important point, because what you tend to find with the technology-based communication is it's very focused and it's very transactional. So we are you know, logging in, we're linking in to do a particular thing, to discuss a particular topic, to run a particular sort of development meeting in a way, and we lose the softer side and we lose the informal side. So I think what it's key to do is to really do that audit in a way of what we found valuable, what we really found valuable, because we get so, one of the big challenges is we got so many naturally, we get so many naturally occurring cues that used to happen in the office that we wouldn't even recognize, little breaks in our day, little conversations, little ideas we'd hear on the airways that would feed into our thinking or allow us to feed into other people's, and they just naturally occur. And so it's really worth thinking to what degree we can replicate those now. So if we're looking at those interactions, let's not just have the you know, the formal interactions. When did we have the Monday meeting, etc.? What were the informal ones that we really used to value? Because they will also be valuable to us, and they do. So it is where we pick up ideas and pick up creativity. So I think it's absolutely key when we look at that sense of purpose. You know, what are we trying to achieve here? How did we used to go about doing that? Not just the technical skills we brought to bear, the interaction. How can we best replicate that? And let's manage the expectations we place on ourselves. It is going to be challenging, and we can go a long way towards it being how it was, but maybe we can't go all the way. But also it might allow us to include more people in those conversations. That water cooler moment can have 20 people on the line now rather than 2. So there are benefits and there are burdens to all these things, but I think it's absolutely key to try and think about what we found valuable and what's a current version of that look like, rather than just think, if we can't do it as we used to, let's maybe just give up on it for now.
Yeah, I love hearing that some organisations are doing more kind of social aspects of the part side of the business virtually as well. I mean, we do a sort of Friday end of the day beers and things like that. So I think checking in, you know, not like you say, not just having those formal meetings, or sometimes I hear that people are literally back to back with meetings on video calls, and that is draining in itself. So making sure, you're right, that there's other ways, even, you know, a normal phone conversation where you're not looking at somebody face to face, or a text message, or whatever you might use. I think they're so important.
I think this is it. It's funny. We are a lot more face to face, and that's great because it's it makes a richer medium of communication. I know they say 7% of the words, and then there's a body language and intonation, etc. So it makes for a better overall communication. But just because we can now do it this way doesn't mean we don't mix it up and use the channels in the way that we used to. An email's still fine, a call's still fine, a video con's fine. So I think it's great. And the other thing I'd say is that always it's good to offer it. I think everybody will experience this in their own individual way and based on what they're like. So also the ones who were quiet when they were in the office, allow them to be quiet online. They'll just be glad that other people are around them. Those who are more gregarious and outgoing, they'll always jump at the opportunity to have a chat to people. So I think the key thing is just to offer the environment where if people want that interaction to one degree or another, and we'll all want it to one degree or another, that it's, they can take what they want from it in a way. If they want to jump in and have a big conversation, that's great. If they just want to be there whilst other people are there and that's what they used to really like, then, that's a good way of doing things as well.
Yeah, absolutely right. I've just got another question here about sort of we're in a bit of a limbo phase at the moment because people are not quite sure who's getting back into work or if their office is potentially going to open up. I know some of the larger organisations have actually said we're not going to reopen our office until 2021. That's a long time in advance. Or I was chatting to somebody recently who said it's going to be months for us. We're a big organisation, and they don't want to take any risks, and meetings will be different, etc., etc. Maybe for smaller businesses, they might be looking at going back into their offices when the time is right. I mean, the advice is still very much, if you can work from home, do work from home. But we do want, and I think, the government want this sort of reintroduction so that we do start getting back to a new normal society, really. So do you think, how can people cope with their anxieties about that? Obviously, people should probably talk to keep that open communication with their team leaders, their bosses, etc. And if you are one of those, to put that communication, down the line. But I think it's the stay safe, stay home was such a strong campaign that people are nervous. People are thinking, even the primary school, should I be sending my child back in yet? Is it really safe? How do you think that we should be dealing with that communication going forward?
Yeah. I think there are a couple of points there, and one for me, anyways, is a really important initial point, which is I think that allow space and keep engaging around emotions. I mean, I think the emotional management at the moment, coming back on the well-being topic slightly, is absolutely key. We're all. We all have a kind of sort of emotional baggage that we carry around as in any given normal day, and then we know how the day can add to that, and that's why sometimes we can breeze through the day because things are good, and other times it's challenging because we've got lots going on elsewhere. Well, we all start the day with lots going on elsewhere at the moment, and I think one of the key things is if people are feeling anxious, is to give a space for your people to acknowledge that and talk about that, and say, okay, fine, because actually talking about it first of all is just a really useful coping mechanism, for want of a better phrase. The minute you get it out there, it's amazing. You're not the only person talking about it, and we start to do that. We start to process it a little bit more, rather than bottle it up or block it out, which is never a good way to go. So I think if you've got anxious people, encourage them to talk about what they're worried about is the key thing. I think, as I said before, so much of this, so much of anxiety comes from uncertainty about what the working world's going to look like, what the education side of things is going to look like, all everything at the moment. We kind of give people space and say we know we're having to create things as we go, but nonetheless that uncertainty is anxious. And I think as employers, again, wherever possible, any way that you can not pass that uncertainty on down the line, try and do that. So if you can say, okay, fine, whilst the powers that be are deciding on how this might look, I'd just like to let you know this is how we're going to play it. And I think that you're immediately then, creating a bit more certainty for your people in terms of what they're doing, how you might play things as well. So if there's any way in which you can manufacture that certainty for yourselves, then do it. I also think that's what's absolutely key in all of this, because there are so many things we can't control. But I think, again, as individuals and as people, one thing we can control is our values and our behaviors. So as well as looking at what you're doing, look at how you do it. And I think that's one bit you can control. I think we will absolutely stick 100% in line with our values as an organisation. And everything we do will be governed by that. And it will not just be what we do, but how we do it and how we engage with our people to do that. And you know, a good example here is that, you know, you and I were talking, you know, recently about some people will be really keen to get back to the office because they're missing it quite a bit. Others will be a little bit more anxious about it. Again, it's about offering a space that people can occupy if they want to. And I don't mean a literal space in that sense, but, you know, it's about offering something that people can take advantage of if they want to, but there's no pressure around it in a way. And bit by bit, we'll get back to a norm where we're all doing things a bit more, you know, in line and similarly. And I think, but at the moment, let's not force people into doing things. I think it's about everybody finding their own pace through this, where that's possible from a productivity point of view. So I think it's that key in a way, is trying to offer certainty where we can, because that will take away some of the anxiety, and making sure we stick to our values in what we do. But at the same time, where anybody's experiencing anything, whether it's annoyance, frustration, anxiety, get people talking about it, get people processing it, because, you know, if we just bottle it up, it'll you know, it's never going to be a good thing. It's going to eventually burst out at a time when we wouldn't want it to, and in a way we wouldn't want it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you can like and share and comment about this video into your streams, that would be really helpful as you're watching now, to just grow the viewership of this community and this video. Through, actually, we asked on various networks for people to send their questions. So just having a look at this. What if we are returning to a work environment with reduced teams, which means additional responsibilities for anyone still employed? So obviously we are in a situation at the moment where people have been furloughed. We ran a survey recently that people can have access to the results of that in our COVID-19 business reaction report, which is pinned to our Facebook page. And some of the results are very interesting. And, you know, sadly, some of those furloughed possibly won't be going back into their roles. So how do people that are going back sort of readapt into that new environment? And as this questionnaire person's put, possibly taking on additional responsibilities.
I think there are three parts to that. I think to whatever degree we sort of re-engage as organisations with what we're doing, with our purpose, etc. I think it's really important that we almost, you know, reset our vision in a way. So actually, we're just straight to say to people when they come back in, you know, we've all been slightly distant from each other at the moment. We've all, you know, not had those cues around. But as an organisation, this is still the vision. This is the mission. This is what we're all about. So that people actually know what we're targeting in terms of the objectives we want to achieve, and then we provide those a little bit in light of current things. But actually, this is what good looks like for us as an organisation. What I want us to do either in the next few weeks, the next few months, and building beyond as well. So I think that focal point is quite key to start with. I think then it really is, and I do feel that, you know, the size of these challenges, it's going to be much more about teams working together rather than individual effort in a way, because that sort of collective effort will be how we overcome a challenge of this kind of size and complexity. So I think it's about saying, okay, fine, as teams, do we understand what we're trying to do? Do we understand our strategy for doing that? Does everybody understand their individual roles and responsibilities? When we work together on this, when we have individual responsibilities, and where they're a change from what they were before, where they're similar to what they were before, how we function as a team, you know, in terms of our operating principles, kind of how we make decisions, the sort of culture we want in the team, and how we're going to monitor and manage our performance. So I think there's a need then to set and manage collective expectations. And then I think there's a need to, within that, set and manage individual expectations, particularly if people's roles are changing slightly. And I always use a sort of little mnemonic that's a useful little checklist for this, which is about, you know, what creates good performance, because it's all about expectations in a way. And the way I work through it is just sit down with your people and say, look, are you absolutely clear on what I want you to do, what we need you to do, when, by, etc. You know, what your contribution is going to be. Have you got all the resources that you need to do that, whether it's time, whether it's people, whether it's authority, contact, whatever it is? Do you feel you've got all that? Are you engaged in why you need to do it? So you understand why, why I'm asking you to do it, why it's good for the team, the business, and clients as a whole. And the next one, which is probably key, which is ability. So if you've got the technical skills or the tactical skills, because it's sometimes, I kind of know how to do that, I just don't know how to do it in this environment. So there's a subtle change there. But do you have the ability to kind of deliver on that if you want to? T is thought processes. So what's your confidence level like? If it is something new and it is challenging you, are you happy taking this on? How can we just help you get through that bit in a way? E is external. So is there anything else going on around you, either other jobs you've got at work, that you're still doing your old stuff and I'm asking you to do new stuff? Can you juggle the two? Or beyond the office, because there's a lot going on at home at the moment that might just get in the way of that. And then S, supervision. What can I do to help? And how can I work with you to do that? And I think where we're doing all this, because I think it really will help us re-engage with what we're doing, is to start to be clear on what our objectives are, where we're delivering them collectively and what that's going to look like, and then where we're delivering them individually and what that's going to look like. And bit by bit, as we start to set and pursue these goals, we'll create momentum again, but we're being really fair to people and individuals, so people and teams in how we do that, so that actually we're saying, okay, fine, it is something new and it is going to be challenging, but we all like a bit of challenge. Well, let's make sure it's supported challenge rather than people feeling, a little bit like they're being kind of challenged beyond their means at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really useful a tool to go through. You mentioned confidence there, and that just kind of took me back to the previous question about really building people's confidence in this uncertain time, particularly as we make those changes, whatever they might be, as we go back potentially to working together. I think people are potentially a little bit nervous, a little bit uncertain. So that communication and that confidence building within teams and individuals, I think will be really crucial. Linda has shared another comment here, which I'll just bring up on the screen. I think as managers, we also need to be conscious that sometimes staff are working alone and don't have the opportunity to lay off on someone else their worries or frustrations that we may cause them as managers. So we need to be cautious in our written and spoken language, which I think is a good point, because obviously through emails and potential other messaging services that people are using, perhaps we do need to sort of triple check what we're saying, that it doesn't come across in the wrong way at this time when people are potentially a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more sensitive than they would be in the office environment. I
think that's true. And a little bit comes back to the values point that we were talking about before, and a little bit comes back to the informal interactions. We all know what it's like, the best one in the world. Even the greatest bosses in the world, people will go and have a bit of a bitch about them every now and then. And it's a good download. Sometimes that's all we need to do. We're not looking for a big change. It's just a download of that was frustrating. We get it out of the way and we move on. And I think it is key to just, again, keep offering people the opportunity to chat amongst themselves or to chat with you about how are we doing. And something, I don't know whether it sounds counterintuitive or not, but one thing I'm really encouraging people to do is just think about running a mini engagement survey with your people at the moment. So nothing big. There's little 10, 12 question ones you can do. And there's a couple of organizations I know are doing this, which is just, okay, now that we're getting into how we're approaching this particular episode or chapter in the organization's life, how are we doing? How are we doing? And I think it's, I'm not necessarily thinking we do the big sort of 35-minute, very in-depth, engaging effectiveness ones. It's just a short one that just thinks, does everybody kind of know what we're doing now? Everybody have a chance to show their skills. They feel like, they're being looked after as a business and got a chance to voice their opinions, because it'll be quite good just to inform. As I say, it just gives other people a bit of a voice in a way, because they are quite isolated, and those conversations can be quite functional and transactional, and the sort of softer while we're chatting stuff can get lost a little bit. So it's just another opportunity to draw that out of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question that came through from one of our other networks for you, Graham. This is great. We're getting lots of interaction. Thank you, guys. Thanks for your questions, and please do like, share, and comment of this interview into your other groups and any networks that you're part of as well. This person's put that they only had a short time in the office as a new starter before lockdown kicked off. How do they build that informal network virtually. So I think that's a really interesting one as a new starter when you're trying to make those relationships within a new business. And now you'll find yourself working from home. You're not sure for how long, but you want to obviously make those inways with individuals and teams. What are the sort of top tips for that, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, it's something where I've seen. I did a similar session to this a few weeks ago with a group of resourcing people. So they were looking at how they bring people in, and then they were frantically thinking, how are we going to do our onboarding now? Because I think obviously recruitment will slow down, but we've committed to bring people in, so they're going to join, and we still want to resource to certain areas. And I think so. It's looking at that onboarding, and it's another example of, well, what would it look like normally? What would I do normally? And then what's a current version of that? And it will be more challenging, and it probably will call on us to be a bit more courage. So I think interact with people at the organisation to maybe help sort of turn the wheels a bit for you. But who would I typically want to grab a coffee with to start with, and just interact? Who's organisation? What would I want to know about the business, and who would be the best person to chat to about that? Whether it's the formal strategy that we are putting in place in either overall or in certain areas, whether it's how we all interact as businesses, whether it's how we get certain things done, whether it's just who are the good people to know in terms of the social circles that we move in. Who would I typically speak to? If I was joining an organisation, or maybe flipping it back to the employer, if somebody was joining our organisation, what would we typically do with them, and how can we make sure that we are allowing them to build those networks? And it might take a little bit more courage for a new joiner who's not met people to email a colleague and say, look, do you mind if we just have a coffee on Thursday afternoon and have 20 minutes? Because I'd just like to get to know you a little bit more and what you're doing, because obviously we are going to try and operate as a business same as we would do. And normally we'd have met by now, we'd have understood things by now. So what would that normal onboarding process look like? Or actually, good chance to reflect, what should our onboarding process look like? And how can we as organisations make sure that people coming in still get that? Or how could I as an individual think, well, what do I need to know about this organisation? If I want to get up to the stage where I'm really, really contributing, who do I need to know? What do I need to know? And how can I go about making sure that I'm sort of progressing on that myself? Notwithstanding, it is going to be a bit more challenging. It's not going to come as naturally as it would do necessarily. But I think that's one of those ways of thinking, but I can still do some of it. I can still do a big chunk of it and still move forward on that.
I like that. And I think it's just about being brave, isn't it? Just being brave and asking for that kind of virtual coffee time together that's a little more informal than the other chats. And I think to just go for it. This is a time when people are trying new things. A lot of people are we find a lot of our clients are doing sort of new videos and things like that, which we've been encouraging them to do since day one. But they're taking the opportunity to try something new at this time, because everything is so different. I think be brave and ask for that virtual coffee is a really, really good tip. Got another comment here. Thank you, Linda. Great contributor. Let's bring that up on the screen. Has the recent government message change shown up that we actually prefer more definitive direction when circumstances are difficult and different? She says she's talking about leadership here. And I think it's we had that very strong message of stay home, stay safe. And we were all a bit like, oh, right, okay, we're sort of being told what to do. And now we've got the stay alert message, which has been confusing. And now people are like, oh, well, what does that mean? So obviously the government can't do anything, right? That's, usually the case. But how do we prefer our direction as business leaders and as individuals? You're getting me now onto my nerdy psychologist side of things, because this is a very challenging time, but actually when I put that hat on, it's also very, very interesting to look at things. And if you look at one of the things in terms of, we always look at what motivates people, but also it's important to look at how motivation works. So it's a bit like saying with a car, put petrol in the tank and it'll make it go, but we need to learn how to drive as well. We won't automatically start to move forward. And what you saw with the first phrase, I think, is what you'd class as, it was a sort of action, reason and reward. So what do I want you to do? I want you to stay at home. Very clear, direct. What do I need to do? So I need to stay at home. What's the reason for that? I'm going to protect the NHS. What's my reward? We'll save lives. We will save lives by doing that. And actually what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people to choose to do things rather than feel like they were told to do things. We
we'll do it if we're told to, but we're much more bought into things if we feel like we're doing it for a reason that sort of aligns with us in a way. And what that first message did was it gave us a very, very clear action in a way of, okay, from what does performance look like? What does good look like? It looks like staying at home. What's my reason for doing that? Well, I want to support the NHS. I want to choose to support and protect our NHS. And, you know, they're pretty much heroic at the moment, so who wouldn't want to get behind that, etc. And what will happen if I do that? Well, we'll save lives. So from a motivational point of view and a psychology point of view, you could really see that. And this is just my humble opinion. I think what you're probably seeing with the second one is something a little bit softer, and it's a more, it's maybe got a more communication and branding sense to it, maybe than a behavioural science. And I think that's right, but has it been a step too far in terms of actually in the whole, you know, we do want to introduce a little bit more common sense, and we want to introduce maybe a little bit more kind of flexibility, but I think the key is in the word common. And what we need to do, it's a bit, you know, it's a bit like when working in teams. We've all got to have a clear and shared idea of what good looks like and what direction we're heading in. Otherwise, we can be very, very busy and all think we're doing the right thing, but we go in different directions. And it's striking that balance, I think, in a way. So there are times when it's absolutely right to give direction in terms of an action, and sometimes it's right to give direction in terms of a principle or philosophy. And I think that at the moment we're probably still more at the definitive action than the definitive philosophy, because we all want to make sure that we're managing this margin on the R rate and what we do there. And we just need that bit more guidance now, and we'll relax and we'll get more to the philosophy or principle in the months to come. But I do get a sense that at the moment, you know, we're having to explain and provide that clarity, whereas before it was there. And it's a difficult balance to strike. I wouldn't, you know, I have absolute sympathy for anybody who's dealing with this at the moment. But I think if I look at it with my kind of psychology hat on, that's the difference I could see. So I wasn't too surprised when you get the reaction that you've got in terms of, hang on a minute, you know, is that as effective as what we were doing a few weeks ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do appreciate that they're, you know, trying to get people to, like you say, use their own common sense and judgment and have a little bit more initiative for themselves, which is great. But obviously, not for everybody at the same time. Yeah. Just to let guys know, we're probably going to round up in the next 5 minutes. So if you do have any more questions or comments, or want to share your own experiences with Graham about this time, then please do. Also, please do give some likes and love hearts for this video, and for Graham taking his time to join us and to share his insight. And I have had another question come through from one of our other platforms. How long will people need to assimilate back to normal working environments? And what if they don't? How much time can we give them as managers, leaders?
It's, I think this is a really interesting one. It's something that's been mentioned to me more. I think, you know, I talked right at the start about we're in that kind of response phase now. So we're trying to, you know, go on our path to recovery, and hopefully at some point we'll all go on growth and be the businesses that we wanted to. But when we're working at home, we miss the cues. So to a certain extent, we can forget that actually the working world hopefully is going on around us in a way. So it's almost about trying to get ourselves back up to speed. And you know, I sort of look at what's happened with the sports people at the moment, which is, you know, they're all going through kind of mini pre-seasons in a way to get themselves from where they are now back up to speed so they can start playing effectively in a little bit of time. And I think there will therefore be a process that we need to go through to get people up to speed and sort of re-engage our people, not just in what we're all about as an organisation, but what we're doing. And then I think it's not how long it will take, how long we give people. I think it's almost for any industry sector or any organisation to sort of have a look at what that's going to mean to them. So what I would do with that is to say, okay, and it's again about expectations in a way. So when we're setting those expectations and developing those plans, half of it will be what we come up with, and the other half will be how we come up with that. And I'd really strongly suggest you engage with your people around that. So actually, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is where we're hoping to get to as a business, Q3, end of the year, moving forward, etc. So these are the, you know, from a financial perspective, from engagement with clients, from the products I think we're going to be able to put out there, and the people that we've got, and how we organise ourselves. This is how we see ourselves moving forward. People clear on that, happy with that, what questions, and how can we build through those stages in a way so that we create that momentum? Because I think there will be, I don't think we can just ask people to drop back in on day one and get going. I think the more visibility that we can do, and just have in mind those, okay, fine, what are we going to do week 1 to get ourselves back up to speed, and then how are we going to ramp that up in week 2, so that eventually we get back to whatever the new version is of what we used to do, or what we're all about as an organization, but on an understanding that we're not going to be able to turn the tap back on straight away. I would imagine the majority of businesses and with the majority of people. But in terms of how we turn that tap back on, I think if we engage with our people, coming back to the point we mentioned before about them choosing to do it and feeling more motivated to do it, and they're more motivated to put the effort in and overcome the hurdles, if we're involving them in that and they understand why we're doing what we're doing, they're always going to be more motivated and put more effort into to get up to speed. And I think that will create the momentum that will not just take us back to where we were, but keep us going into whatever growth looks like moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I was chatting to somebody yesterday who was saying that they're interested in managing their teams in terms of some of their staff will, of course, have been working as usual. Yeah. And then some of their team will have been furloughed, and potentially, sort of on the psychological side, for those that have been working, they might feel a little bit cheesed off that, their colleague had been furloughed, not working, potentially having a lovely time in their garden, and still getting 80% of their pay. And they might be in that same team, and the other person might have had to take on a little bit more work and a little bit more responsibility at this time. And I guess kind of fusing those people back together so that there isn't any resentment and that they are working together going forward. I also heard that somebody had been asked to continue working, but for only 90% of their normal salary and with increased responsibility, which is crazy when you think of the situation that there's a high percentage of the population that aren't working for 80%. So those kind of resentments that potentially could come into the workplace, I think we probably covered it in some of your tips already, but just ensuring that teams are back together and aligned with, with the future of the business at the forefront.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think in a way we sort of touched on areas of this, and I do think it will be. I think it will be important. I think it will be because I think there'll be people who've worked throughout this in organisations where some people have been furloughed, who actually have got real sympathy with those people being furloughed. Some people who might, as you say, be a bit frustrated and think, I feel like I've been really sort of carrying things and doing the greater good during that time. I think there'll be people who are on furlough who think, it's been a good time. Actually, it's been quite a relaxing chance to do things. Others who've been chomping at the bit to get into work. You're going to get a real cross section in either camp. So the thing to do is never make sweeping generalisations and sort of think, actually, I can understand the frustrations or the despondency or all these things, etc. So don't ever get at anybody for what they feel. It's really a question of how can we, again, get people engaged again. And so let's acknowledge these things in the same way as we talked earlier about don't let emotions bubble up in the background. Let's try and get it out. And you have to be quite thought through about how you do it. It's not again in mudslinging sessions, etc. or thing, but actually just thinking what are the challenges we might face from that and how can we just have some sort of clarity around what people are feeling, and then almost refocus on what how not letting that get in the way of what we want to achieve moving forward, because everybody will have experienced this slightly differently, and everybody will expect that reintegration slightly differently as well. And I do think, when I talk about engagement surveys, don't just do a survey of the people who are in, engage everybody, because even though those people are furloughed, the whole point of it was they're still part of the family. So we need to be thinking about, how engaged they are, what their well-being is, etc. Can we bring them back in bit by bit in a way? But I think it is, in the same way as we might need to look operationally at how we bring people back together, look at it from that personal perspective, and let's just think, okay, but what are the challenges we're going to face? What are people feeling about this? How can we work our way through this? And then what's that common goal we all need to focus on now moving forward? That's just going to allow us to get back to being productive. And it will take a bit of time, and it will mean we have to work through things. And I kind of come back to the values of any organisation as being quite key in how you deal with all this and how we'd approach these situations. But I think it's absolutely right that people are starting to see this as a challenge they want to embrace, rather than just something where they think, oh, well, we'll just put everybody back in a room and it'll automatically work itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just such interesting times. Yeah. And it'd be great to have another catch up with you in potentially sort of a few weeks to see. Definitely. And if there's a sort of mixture of people that have gone back and all the rest of it. Thank you everybody for watching. If you did really enjoy this interview, please do give us some more thumbs up and love hearts, and like we always say, share and comment as well. Thank you for those that have shared your contributions on this platform and other questions for Graham as well that we've had come through. We really do appreciate your input. This is a community of people working together through a global pandemic. It's a very unusual situation, and we built IsoNation to support people. So thank you, Graham, for your time. I mentioned that we have the results of our business impact survey. They are now through, and we've put together a business reaction report, which is pinned to the top of our Facebook page. If you would like to download that and have a look at that, it's also got some insights from our interviews, because Graham was one of our leaders' insight interviews as well. So you'll see Graham again on there, and our other collaborators as well. And if you do want to get involved and come and do something on IsoNation with us, then please do get in touch. We would absolutely love to hear from you. So once again, thank you, Graham. Did you want to say anything to finish up?
No, it's always good, and I think this is challenging everybody day to day, and it's interesting, as you say. We were talking a few weeks' time, and there'll be a whole new range of challenges, and we're all having to find our way. And I think forums like this are great because there's no one best way with all these things. You know, it's really about finding the best way forward for ourselves and our organisation, and that's why sharing ideas is a great way of getting to that point. But I suppose if I could, bring it back to the week that we're in, the key advice I'd give to everybody, it's mental awareness, mental health awareness week. It's, there's a lot to do there. Well-being, look after yourself. It's always going to put you in a better position to deal with whatever challenges are out there. And if you're looking after your people as well, we're all going to be well set, or as well set as we can be to deal with what's coming up in the weeks and months ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Lovely roundup. Thank you, Graham. And on that, maybe get outside, take a walk.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Graham. We'll talk again soon. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Bye for now.